Welcome back to Green Disruptors, Scaling the Future, the podcast where we explore bold solutions shaping the next era of climate innovation and the marketing solutions that help them scale. Today, I'm chatting with Lin Sun-Fa, the CEO and founder of Emobi, a company on a mission to transform the EV charging experience. Lin's background in cybersecurity collided with his frustration as an EV driver, sparking a solution called JustPlug, a system that makes charging as simple as plugging in, no app or RFID card required. We cover the technical breakthroughs, the future of energy communication, and what it takes to scale a cutting-edge startup in a fast-moving industry.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Green Disruptors, Scaling the Future. Today, we're going to have a fun conversation with Lin Sun-Fa. He is the CEO and founder of Emobi. So welcome, Lin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Megan.
Yes, my pleasure. Tell me a little bit about you, first of all, just maybe a little bio, and then we'll go into Emobi.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lin here, my background is cybersecurity. So I've been a nerd in the field for a while. And I think goes back to 5 years ago when I was still doing nonprofit and I was driving an electric vehicle and I came across this problem of EV charging. I get to a charger and I had to download these apps, and whenever I get to a new one, it's another app, and I end up with 20 different apps on my phone. And I speak with other drivers and it becomes frustrating, and apparently people bring book of cards wherever they go, like RFID cards, a book of them whenever they go to fulfill their charging needs. And so I saw a problem, and so just kind of mixing that cybersecurity background that I have and kind of the problem that I see, I basically venture out to Emobi.
So any business starts with a problem that needs to be solved. So you kind of saw an opportunity there.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal was simple back then, was to basically make my own life easier, which now end up being helping more drivers out there.
It's funny, my husband recently kind of got stranded with a rental car because he couldn't figure out how to charge the thing because the app wasn't working. So for sure, this is a valid problem. So tell me about the kind of what it has taken to get Emobi off the ground and kind of where you're at now and what the landscape is looking like.
Yeah, so we started 5 years ago, and we essentially think about the problem and solution a little bit different than most people. I think we didn't want to build another app that people have to download or claim to be the one app that you need the last time that you need.
This is the best one.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. And so we decided to basically integrate with the charging networks out there in US and Canada and trying to standardize them and enable this one single access to other apps. And the goal is that we can enable as many apps out there so that you as a driver can choose your preferred app. And I think in 2022, we went through Y Combinator and we decided that, why don't we focus on the technology side and double down on it? And so with my cybersecurity background, we went into the security and automation stack. How can we make drivers to go to any chargers in the US and in Canada and simply just plug in and charging will start automatically. The charger will identify the vehicle automatically, will authorize the charging. We don't need to open an app. We don't need to interact with the map. We don't have to go through that hassle of
So it's basically as easy as filling up your car with gas is now.
Exactly, and even easier because you don't need even to tap
or you don't even have to swipe the card.
Exactly.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
So, I guess that lays it out pretty well. And this is called the JustPlug, right?
Yes, that is correct. So
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead with your question.
Well, I was just wondering if there was any other piece of it you'd like to, for someone who's never experienced what it's like to use it before, what else you might say about it.
Yeah, so for the drivers, it's as simple as plug it in and just plug, charging will start automatically. But behind the scene, what's actually happening is that we use digital certificates, which is an asymmetric encryption technology. We're using every day today without noticing it, is that on our browser, when we open google.com, for example, you see the green lock icon on that browser. That's because the Google server has a digital certificates and our computer has a digital certificate at the manufacturing process. And so when they connect, when we open google.com, They basically are able to identify each other and say, I trust you, you trust me. And so you see the green lock and trusted connection. And so in a similar fashion, we're doing this for chargers and vehicles. And so that when they're plugged in, charging will start automatically. And the beauty of JustPlug, which is kind of unique to Emobi, is that it works with any chargers and any vehicles. With most of the vehicles that are deployed today are older vehicles and older chargers. All of them can work with JustPlug, and we can enable JustPlug instantly without much setup so that charging can happen seamlessly.
So I imagine that that was not easy to get to that point. So maybe what were a couple of the biggest technical hurdles to making that happen?
Yeah, so it was a challenge. So I think back in 2022 when we decided to go to this route, we realized that the existing protocol called Plug and Charge, it's called ISO 15118, that's the protocol. It has a limitation where it requires all of the chargers and vehicles to upgrade their own system, upgrade their own firmware, which are extremely costly. And if you can imagine that if there's the hardware manufacturers, the software that operates the chargers, and then there's the vehicles manufacturer, the software that operates the vehicle. Everyone
so many hands in the pot.
Exactly. And everyone has to put on more money in order to just support this protocol. And there's nothing against it. I think the industry is going towards it. But I think what people don't think is that what happened to the 80-90% of chargers and vehicles that have been deployed, we are not going to just rip it out and replace it with a new one.
Right.
So JustPlug was born because we want to solve this problem. And we basically moved the certificate authentication to the cloud so that there's no hardware dependency on these vehicles and chargers.
I'm obviously not a tech nerd, so I don't know how that works. But like, how hard was that to do?
It took us 2 years.
Okay, so really hard. So, I mean, it sounds like you've got something that is solving a huge problem that's relevant to, and it's only going to become more relevant as more people adopt EVs. But what does that look like in terms of scaling your business?
Yeah, so our goal still focus on the drivers, right? How can we enable this as fast as possible? For Emobi, we basically distribute this technology to automakers, fleet operators, tier 1, tier 2 suppliers of auto OEMs. And so anyone basically that interface with EV drivers, we're trying to enable this technology. And we don't really care who's going to take it first and who's going to distribute the technology. As long as the EV drivers get access to this, that is our main goal. Our business model are pretty friendly in a way that we try not to burden the cost to the drivers. It's mainly to the businesses that is adopting the technology.
Okay, so how are you going after these people then? Like, I guess what is your client avatar in a way?
Yeah, I mean, we meet with these people through technical conferences because Emobi is we position ourselves as a technology company, and the focus is simple, is that how can we solve the technical problems that exist? And so there's actually plenty of technical conferences like Charin, SAE, and these events allow us to connect with basically the technical people in the automakers, in the fleet operators industry, and basically through just simple conversation, I think the solution makes sense, people clicks, and so we are actually at a time where there's so many requests and we're trying to just make sure we can address everyone's needs at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that's a good problem to have.
Right. Absolutely.
So in terms of like bottlenecks to scaling, is that kind of the main issue right now, is just making sure that you can have the staff and have the ability to implement all these people that are interested, or what would the bottleneck be?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a bottleneck, but definitely I think internally we are hiring a lot. So we're scaling the team exponentially at this moment.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes.
That's probably what you do day to day probably looks a lot different now than it did 2 years ago.
For sure. I feel like every day is different at this point.
Yeah. So what are you the most excited about right now?
Yeah, I think like to think about what future holds in terms of EV and EV charging and even energy assets communication in the future. I think the protocol that we established allows authentication and authorization of energy assets. If I think about smart cities or when we watch sci-fi movies, everything seems to connect seamlessly. I think that's how I envision the future, is that everything, including all of the EVs, all of the chargers, all of the infrastructure, they're able to communicate with each other And these digital certificates that we install becomes the foundation of the communication of the energy assets.
Yeah, that is really cool. I like that kind of sci-fi big view of it. That probably helps you have a perspective in moments where things get tricky, because that always happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm in marketing, so I have a lot of questions down that lane, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, like, what in the beginning, like how there's many different bumps that you get over in each phase. And so, like, if you had any advice for like a startup in their first year, as far as like getting the right connections, what would your advice be?
Yeah, I think it took us definitely a long time to get where we at. I would start with this: take every advice with a grain of salt, and because at the end of the day, we know our company the best, but we do want to consider other people's opinion, other people's advice, but we can't just take everyone's advice at the same time. And I think the other aspect to this is that at the end of the day is our conviction about the problem. I think as a founder, there are many times where I feel like there's huge roadblocks and I feel like giving up, but because of the conviction that I had about the problem, about the solution, about our team's expertise to solve the problem, that keeps me going. And so whatever reason or motivation that any founders can find, I would double down on that conviction to make sure that we keep going regardless.
Well, I mean, it's unique because sometimes people keep going with an idea that doesn't have product market fit, and you're like, no, you need to fix that. But it's like you have that, and you're solving a very tangible, real problem. So it's probably easier to push through barriers that way.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think that's kind of the big debates, right? Like, when do I know if I'm being stubborn or if I'm actually being relentless?
Right.
And the line is pretty blurry. And
yes, it is.
I think the goal is to basically take what we learn from, whether that's the market, how the market reacts, or the people around us, and trying to learn from it. So, every day for Emobi, we don't do the same thing again and again. We always evolve. We always rapidly, becomes better. And so I think we're able to see the slope and the growth slowly. And as long as you can see that, I think there's a trajectory for success, then I would basically keep going. But yes, there will be times where it's an end and things needs to be ended.
Yeah, that's good advice. So we talked kind of about bottlenecks, and you're like, no, what is a bottleneck right now? Like, because you're at the hockey stick curve, like things are getting big really fast. So like, what's one of your biggest challenges right now?
The biggest challenges that I have is ensuring that the culture that I want in the company stays the way that I want it to be. And I think as we scale up as a team, especially this quick, we face this issue of what kind of culture do we want to implement. And sometimes there are people that I'm going to be onboarding and I will no longer work directly with them anymore. So that would be, I wouldn't say, it's one of the challenges or things that I think about at night a lot. So
yeah. Well, that's really relevant, because when you're working with a few founders, the culture is almost a thing that exists, but then the bigger you get, it's something you have to intentionally create.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
That's really important. So how would you describe that vibe? Like, if someone were to come work for you, what is the culture like?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that we believe in the company. There's resilience, accountability, and I think more importantly is teamwork that we have with each other. So those three aspects.
I love that. That sounds like a winning combination to me.
You're too nice. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. It's like I always want to have everything be values aligned, and like personal accountability in business is like way up there for me. Like everyone's got to, it's like you can't have teamwork without that accountability piece. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And resilience, of course. Can't be in a startup without that. Yeah. So I kind of didn't follow my guidelines so much because I was just going with what I was interested in, but I like it. Tell me a little bit more about how are you guys doing with like I guess I'm thinking about educating the prospective market, because that seems to be a common challenge in especially companies that have a new technology. So what are you doing to help educate before you have these first conversations with people at conferences?
Yeah, I would say it's slightly different for us because for EV drivers, when they switch from gas car to EVs, that's kind of the learning curve. It's like now I have to download an app to charge my car. I didn't have to do that before. So basically, what we have to educate people is that the security and the complexity that comes with it, right? When we create so many accounts and put in payment information on all of these apps, even the smaller networks that have barely software support, and we put in money in the wallet and the money gets stuck in the wallet, we don't know the security of the account, the financial information. And so there's just a lot of security risk that comes with it. And there are alternative solutions for plug and charge where it's called auto charge, but it uses the MAC address of the vehicle, which totally expose a personal information of that drivers.
Yeah.
And so what we do is that we're trying to educate people about how important it is security, and we got to balance that with automation. Yes, we can have a seamless charging experience, but at the cost of what? Our own personal information. And so this is where the asymmetric encryption technology comes in, is that to ensure your personal information, that unique identifier of your vehicle, doesn't get exposed. You have a private key that you get to keep forever, and the only thing that gets exposed is what we call the public key. And that's the beauty of basically asymmetric encryption technology.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're not obviously directly making money off of the users, so you're more making your money from people who choose to adopt your system. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So, are you having to educate those guys more than the general public? Like, which one of those two is a bigger issue for you, do you think?
I see. I think I wouldn't say, I would say both are the same. So for the drivers, it's a different set of education where we need to educate them with security and also, but in terms of the experience, it makes sense because people are leaning towards like an easier
They want
charging.
convenience.
Exactly. And I think for the companies, what we've seen is that people know the options that they have in the industry, like the one that I mentioned to you with MAC address, with auto charge. So when they hear about our value proposition on JustPlug, that we're able to enable legacy chargers to have a secure authentication and authorization of charging, they become surprised. And so I think that's where the education comes in, is that how does it actually work? How can Emobi basically build this thing where it can allow any chargers and any vehicles to securely communicate with each other? So that's the education.
Do you think they're like, that sounds too good to be true? So if they understand a little bit of the technology behind how it works, then they're a little more, the guard is down?
Yeah. I mean, we walk them through the process. We give them demo. We basically give them, hey, you can just try it out and do your own penetration testing and test it out. And that's kind of how we do our demo today.
Show, don't tell. That's
exactly.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, this is very exciting. I hopefully by the time I get my own EV, I'm ashamed to say I don't have one yet. I have a hybrid.
That's good enough. That's good. That's better than most people.
Yeah, that's true. I do have solar panels on my house. But anyway, I hope by the time I have one, this is already in motion, so I can just step right into that convenience.
We hope so too.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would share is how excited I am with the industry. And this is maybe the nerdy side of me, is that all of these communication protocol that we're establishing has so many possibility. And what I meant by that is that the same protocol that we're establishing would allow us to do bidirectional charging, basically discharging energy from the vehicle to the grid. And so
very cool.
We are as excited as the drivers that is going to experience this convenience of charging, that the same technology will enable us to many future technology that we haven't had the chance to experience yet.
That is exciting. And that's something I'm happy to nerd out with you. No, thank heaven for nerds. That's what I say. Oh, you guys are saving our butts here. But anyway, thank you so much. This has been fun, Lin.
Likewise. Thank you, Megan, for having me.
Yes.
A huge thank you to Lin for joining me and sharing the fascinating journey behind Emobi. It's inspiring to hear how the right mix of technical expertise and real-world frustration can lead to solutions that move an entire industry forward. If you want to learn more or connect with Lin, check out emobi.io or find Lin Sun-Fa on LinkedIn. He's always up for a conversation. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe, share it with a friend, and stay tuned for more innovators shaking up the future. See you next time.